Last lesson we were looking at adding and subtracting integers. Remember, we would have the two negative integers we'd add together, or a negative and a positive, or we would minus a negative, in which case we really added the positive. And we were looking at how that worked. Now today we're looking at how to multiply and divide integers. So, your essential question, how do I multiply and divide integers? Your learning intention, I'm learning how to multiply and divide integers. So you have two warm-up questions. Pause the video and do the two warm-up questions now. Well, I do hope you paused the video and tried to do it on your own. If you're looking at it, these have different symbols. It means that we will find their difference. 53 minus 21 gives me 32. So I bring the 32 up. Now I have to ask myself, which is bigger, 51 or 53 or 21? 53 is bigger, so I know that that negative sign has got to go with my 32. Okay, let's look at the next one. 43 minus a negative 22. Do we minus a negative? No, we plus that positive. So, 43 plus 22 will give me 65, and the answer is 65. Okay, multiplying integers is also what? What is another way we talk about multiplication? Finding the what? Product. What about dividing? If multiplication is finding the product, then dividing is finding the what? Quotient. Okay, think about what happens. The product or quotient will always be positive if what? If the what are the what? If your symbols are the same. In other words, a positive times a positive is equal to a positive. A negative times a negative is equal to a negative. Positive times positive or negative times negative, and it will be positive. I should have put a positive there. I am so sorry. When the symbols are the same, whether they're both positive or both negative, you end up with that positive answer. So if they're to be negative, if they're positive, they're the same. To be negative, they have to be different signs. So, a positive divided by a negative will give you a negative. A negative divided by a positive will give you a negative. So anytime those symbols are opposite, you're going to have a negative number. So, 8 times 3. Positive times positive is a positive, so we know this is going to be a positive number. What is 8 times 3? If you struggle, get your little card out here. 8, 3, 24. So 8 times 3 is 24. Okay. Positive divided by negative divided by a negative is a positive. The opposite of a negative number is a positive number. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay. Pause the video and see if you can get started on the next one. Order of operations says I do what first? I'm going to multiply. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 times negative 4 times 5. Order of operations says I do whichever one I see first because it's all multiplication. Negative 4 times negative 6 times negative 4. Negative times negative is a positive. 6 times 4 is 24. Times 5 is, if I had 5 quarters, I'd have $1.25. But I need to take 5 cents away because I've only got 24 times 5. So that's 1 times 5. 125 minus 5 is 120. I could have also set it up like this. 5 times 4 is 20. Carry my 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 2 more is 12. 120 again. For the last one, 3 divided by negative 9. Now I know it's going to be a negative number, so I'm going to put that there. I need to simplify. What is the greatest common factor? What number will go into 3 and 9 evenly? Well, that would be 3. So I'm going to divide top by 3, and I'm going to divide bottom by 3, because 3 divided by 3 is 1. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So I've simplified it to 1/3. And it's a negative 1/3. Now, if you are still struggling, back the video up and listen to it again. Think through the process. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is just simply to look and think. Negative times negative is a positive. Positive times negative is a negative. Negative times positive, or negative times negative is a positive. Positive times negative is a negative. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 5 of the negative symbols, and I'm multiplying them together. So let's see how this works. Negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2 times negative 3 times negative 4 times negative 5. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 times negative 4 times negative 5. Negative 6 times negative 4 is positive 24 times negative 5. Man, that looks like the last one we did. Positive times negative is a negative, and this will be negative 120. If you don't remember that last problem we did, you would have done a lot more work. Okay. Once again, negative times negative is a positive, times a negative is a negative, times a negative is a positive. So I know that this is going to end up as a positive. So, negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4, times negative 2 times negative 2. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8, times negative 2. Negative times negative is a positive. 8 times 2 is 16. So this is a positive 16. Now we're going to come over here and do this one next. We know that negative divided by negative is a positive. I've got a 12 over 15. What is the greatest common factor that goes into 12 and 15? Well, it won't be 2 because 15 is not even. So we look at 3. Does 3 divide into 12 and does 3 divide into 15? Yes. How do I know? 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 is divisible by 3. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 is divisible by 3. So I will divide top and bottom by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And this becomes 4 over 5. And for the last one, long division. Will 8 go in evenly into 7? No. So we're going to look at 78. Well, I know if it was 80, it would go in 9 times, but this is an 80. So, if it was 80, it would go in 10 times, but this is 78. So it will only go into 9 times. 9 times 8 is 72. 7 plus 2 is 9. That's a quick check for me, so I've got the right answer. 8 minus 2 is 6. So I'm left with 648. 8 won't go into 6, but it will go into 64 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. I'm left with 8. I can divide it one more time. 8 divided by 8, or 8 times 1 is 8. My remainder is 0. 981. Okay, now let's take a minute and look. What do you notice about the equations above and whether the answer is positive or negative? Take a minute and look. Well, this was 5 and it ended up negative. This was 4 and it ended up positive. So, if there is an even number of negatives of negative numbers, the answer is positive. But if the number of negative numbers if the number of negative numbers is odd, then you have a negative answer. Okay, now, so when you're multiplying, if you got even number of negative numbers that you're multiplying or dividing with, then you're going to have a positive number. But if you've got an odd number of negative numbers, then it's going to be a negative answer. What's the difference between multiplying integers with different signs and adding or subtracting integers with different signs? Well, when adding, numbers with different signs, you find their difference. And then keep the symbol of the larger base. Okay, when you multiply, and your signs are different, it is always negative. Okay, pause the video. Can you do the first one on your own? Pause the video now and see if you're understanding. Well, I do hope you tried. So, -2 times -3. Negative times negative is a positive. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 5 is 30. On the next one, we're going to end up with a fraction. But we've got a negative, so we know whatever it is, it will be a negative number. 9 over -18. What is my largest common factor that goes into both of them? 1 plus 8 is 9. 9 is divisible by 9. 9 is divisible by 9. So I'm going to divide the top by 9 and the bottom by 9. Because 9 divided by 9 is 1. 9 divided by 9 is 1. 18 divided by 9 is 2. And we know this will be a -1/2. Okay, let's look at the next one. What do you notice? Well, you notice you've got a negative divided by a negative, which gives you a positive. So this will be positive. 24 divided by 6 is 4. Oh, now we got another one of those pesky little long divisions. Okay. So if I'm looking and thinking, if this was 60, 60 would go into 42 7 times. Since this is 59, we know that it will go in at least 7 times. 7 times 9 is 63. 7 times 5 is 35. 35 plus This be 63, carry this. 35 plus 6 is 38. 35 plus 6 is 41. So this is going to be 4, 1, 3. Okay, borrow that 1, 11 take away 3 is 8. I've got 88, 885. 59 goes into 88 one time. Bring down my 5, I've got to borrow a 1, 18 minus 9 is 9, and 7 minus 5 is 2. Okay, so 59 will go in 1, 2, well, if it was 50, it would go in 5 times. Let's see if it will go in 5 times or not. That'll be 45. Whoops, I put the wrong one down. That will be 45, carry the 4, 25 plus 4 is 29. So this will go in 5 times. And we are done. So, even with the long division problems, if we think logically, we can get it figured out. We might need a scratch paper, but we can do that. How do you know you're successful? When you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers that are either positive or negative. So this was multiplying and dividing. Integers.